Hi Samir.
Hi Manish, good evening. So we are live on Facebook now.
Sure.
So to everyone, good evening, and those who are joining outside India, again, good evening. I hope everybody is safe in this situation, and especially those who are business owners or even the marketers, right? They are trying to think of the new ways of reaching out to the customers.
Now
So
I'm
content marketing is the only best form of marketing any company can have, because this is where you actually choose to educate your customers, and that's the best way of in fact reaching out and uh, become trying to be more customer centric company, right? And the way the other companies like HubSpot or the Marriott has also started investing in the content marketing, right? It's I believe that it is not many small companies find it really difficult to really understand that can they really make an impact. Do they also need to have a bigger size of team to actually work on the content marketing? So in today's session, right, I have with me a wonderful guy, Manish Nepal. Manish is actually he is a B2B expert, content marketing strategist, and currently Manish is an independent consultant. Okay, and his current podcast, that's ABM Conversations, which is basically India's first B2B podcast that's catching up very aggressively in India. Right? The number of signups which is happening is very amazing. Even I am also a fan of this podcast, right? So Manish, once again, just wanted to say hi, and to others also, right? I want to say hi those who are participating. Let me see how many people are alive right now participating. So three people are right now present. Richa is one of them. Other two are Savi two only, right? So Manish, I'll start with the question because as I started, right, many big companies or they already have the big team, right? So today's conversation is about, can a single person pull this off,
yeah.
the content marketing? So what do you think? Do you really think that a single content marketing guy can really make an impact if they are working in a small team or small startup? Those who are
Yeah.
having a tight budget.
Sure. So let me give you a little background on the topic of why I think this is an important topic for
Mm-hmm.
especially small brands, small businesses to consider, because right now we are living in a time where there are mass layoffs happening.
Yeah.
A lot of big businesses are struggling, and when big businesses are struggling, there's no question about small brands are struggling as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we are also living in a time where technology is the biggest leveler. If you can use digital technology to your advantage, you can win even against your biggest competition. So the question is not about, can you do content marketing? You can definitely do,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what kind of resource you have. But how can you scale your content marketing and the impact of your marketing? And the question to that, how can you, is the answer that we are going to discuss in this session today. But the simple answer to that question is yes, you can scale your content marketing. Um it's not a long term strategy or long term solution to rely on one person content marketing team, or even a 4 or 5 person marketing team in the long run. I think scaling is the requirement for most of the smaller companies who are
Mm-hmm.
just up and coming and starting out. So
Yeah.
they don't have a lot of resources. Even if we take a look outside of the COVID-19 situation that we are right now, what we have noticed is smaller companies, when they bootstrap, when they come into the ecosystem of industry, they don't have a lot of resources.
Mm-hmm.
They are bootstrapping, and they run on a shoestring budget, right? So not everybody has the luxury to hire great talent in the team, so they are bound to rely on a few good marketers, one or two.
Mm-hmm.
And content marketing happens to be a non-negotiable part of every business's marketing, because it's what builds you the foundation of inbound marketing. I mean,
True.
that's the thing that you can do best, right? And it's highly scalable. The beauty about content marketing is, with the kind of automation available to you right now, with the kind of technology you have, and with the ideas that we are going to discuss in today's session,
Mm.
there is a lot of things that you can do to run content marketing, at least to build a strong foundation for your marketing team that can be scalable for your future growth.
Okay.
So I think the answer to the question, is it possible? Is definitely affirmative, resounding yes, and we'll dive deeper into how can it be done.
Yeah. So to start with now, since you already said, right, and I think yes, even I can say, because there are a couple of guys who are available in the market. The way I see them, I know that they are not present in every channel, but
Right.
somewhere they are starting up. Okay. So coming back to the main thing, right? So what do you think, according to you, what are the various ways someone can start with? If in case I have to say, how they can amplify if they have to start with a single content marketer.
Sure. So let me explain a little bit by what the topic is about today. When I say how to scale a one-man content team, it's a symbolic way of saying how to scale a small content marketing, how to scale a marketing team, right? It necessarily need not be one-man content team. It can very well be. I've worked in situations like that, but it's also symbolic to say how to scale a smaller marketing team, smaller content marketing team, right? And the number one thing that I can speak from my experience is everything boils down to building processes, building a system on which you can rely to scale or build your foundation of the marketing, right? And when we're talking about building a system, you have to have a very transparent and radical agreement with the leadership of the company, with the brand that you're working with, saying, hey, what is the goal that we have for our business? Because when we are talking about scaling, like I said earlier, it's mostly related to a up and coming brand who are yet to have an organic marketing impact for their brand, right? So mostly I'm assuming scaling is a requirement for companies that haven't don't have a organic footprint in the market. So you have to have a very radical discussion with your leadership team, with their founders, with whoever is meaningful to the company's growth, to say, hey, what is the impact that we want to make as part of our marketing campaign? What are the goals that I should be owning? And then from that point on, it's excuse me, it's a matter of reverse engineering the processes, the system that you have to build in order to crunch the numbers. For example, if your goal is to have 500 people sign up with your product, either you have a free trial or uh, you know either you have sales goal, first you have to understand what is the impact that marketing is going to have, so that you can reverse engineer, you can work towards your goal in a backward process to meet them, right? You should never approach this problem in a way, in a herd mentality way, right? Just because your competition or other companies that you work with were doing 25 blogs a month or 5 blogs per week, I don't think that's a good strategy to go behind. I can definitely personally talk from my experience where, even writing 4 blogs or writing one kick-ass ebook per quarter has a better, deeper, and meaningful impact than writing 30 blogs in 2 months and getting nowhere, getting no traffic, getting no sign-up. So I think you have to evaluate the options that you have, and then you have to have a very strong consensus within the team, within the company, on what kind of impact that you want to make, and then you have to go from there. The other thing is, when we talk about building system, you really have to double down on research. By which, what I mean is, see, writing content is the easy part. That's how I see it. Writing is something that everybody does. Everybody has passed their schools and colleges and graduation and undergrad. It's not a problem. Everybody can write with a little bit of training and practice, right? That's not a problem. Everybody can be a content marketer. I don't come from a marketing background when it comes to studying in college, but you learn things over time when you have to dirty your hands, right? So that's not a problem. The problem is, I think, being a good researcher, being a kick-ass researcher when it comes to being a content marketer, and giving a solid structure to the content that you are going to build, right? So when I talked about reverse engineering the goal and the impact that you have to have for your business, you have to really map out, maybe create a mind map of the goal that you want to achieve, and then you have to find topic clusters that map to that goal, and then you really have to break it down to smaller chunks of goal to understand what can you do on an everyday basis, on an every week basis, and every month basis, right? Once you do that, it's very easy to build a structure and double down on the research. And once you have all the ingredients that you need to cook this content marketing playbook, right? To make this content marketing playbook, it becomes a much easier job. You just have to sit down and write. It doesn't matter. So research is really important. Structuring, building a structure, mapping back to the bigger picture, bigger goal is really important. Everything else is just a matter of execution. It's a smooth sailing process, and that's what builds foundation for the first step of scaling. And yeah, that's one way. What other question were you going to ask?
So actually, so whatever you explained, right? Maybe if in case I have to rephrase this, right? What you were trying to say, that of course, because startups are someone, right? They are definitely in the shoestring budget, right? Vishal has also posted a similar question, and I think you have already answered. Okay, but again, I'll rephrase his question once again. That what he has asked, that what should be the starting point for the startup just incorporated with no marketing budget to acquire customer, especially when you have no marketing team, right? So what you have, so whatever you have said, like building the process, right? So what you are trying to say, that we should not follow what a herd mentality says, that okay, every day post and just burn yourself. Instead of we can focus on maybe creating one value driven content, right?
Exactly.
And it might take the research, it might take even 15 days, one value driven research targeted to our exact lead oriented audience, right? From where we can generate the lead. That's what you're trying to say?
Yes. So time is definitely of essence when you are bootstrapping, when you don't have the budget and all that. But when you are competing with bigger players in the market, you definitely can't say, oh, I'll just write one blog. I don't care if it takes 15 days or 1 month. I don't think that's the right arrangement. You definitely have to work backwards in terms of meeting deadlines and having a cadence. I think what I was trying to say is, have a radical, transparent discussion with everyone who contributes to the company's growth, to the marketing of the company, and set fixed deadlines, non-negotiable deadlines on how to deliver which content on which dates, and then work towards meeting that. I'm not saying content marketing should have a leeway of breaking ground rules like deadlines and all that. I think you have to have those things in place. But coming back to the other part of question where you said, for example, a company doesn't have marketing budget at all. They have zero budget. I don't think that's a problem. That's the beauty of content marketing. It's almost free. You can definitely pay to get to results by using shortcuts. There are a lot of tools that you can pay and get results faster. But the beauty of content marketing is, the best part of content marketing results are, they are organic. The results are long lasting. If not everlasting, it's long lasting. And you can start by not spending a penny, right? For example, let's say there is a 3-person startup. They just started in Bangalore, maybe a tier 2 city in India, right? And they don't have marketing budget of any type. Suppose they have zero budget. I don't think that's a problem. As long as they have a clear vision of who they want to market to, what is the product market fit, and what kind of buyer persona are they targeting, they can definitely start with day zero by writing stuff or creating content that caters to their market. And like I said, everybody can be good at marketing. Everybody can do content marketing as long as they have clarity in their ideas. So you and I obviously have come across a lot of companies that are starting from garages, proverbial garages, right?
Correct.
And the founders are the first people who will create the first landing page.
They have to be, in fact.
Exactly, right? They have zero budget when it comes to marketing on day zero of the starting of the business, right?
So I completely agree here, right? When someone says that I don't have the budget, then you have to give your time. That's simple as that. You have time, you have to give that. Right. You can't say that, I'm not a marketer, so I cannot do that.
You don't need money, or you don't need marketing degree to do marketing. As simple as that. I remember this very motivational quote that says, the best formula to be successful is just realize the price that you have to pay and then just pay. It might be the time that you need to invest, it might be the money that you might want to invest, or it might be the loneliness you have to develop in terms of being away from your family and friends. That's the price you have to pay. But if you are clear on getting your goals, it doesn't matter. You don't need money. Money is secondary. I think intention and will is what is of more essence here.
Okay, so the first part that you have already summarized, that we are saying that very important, instead of being so much fearful about marketing, right? It's always better to calm down, think about what is my business objective, and focus on one metric to achieve using the content marketing, and invest more time in doing the research, building the processes, and try to build a consistency, even if it is a 2 or 3 people team, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And let me elaborate on the previous point where we said you don't need money. Even if you are a 2 co-founder team startup,
let's take an example of food tech startup. Let's say if it's a food tech startup.
Sure. So you decide to come up with a food tech app, food delivery or takeout, dine out kind of app. So if I'm not imagining wrong, and I have been in situations like that where I'm associated with a brand where I have zero knowledge about the industry, zero knowledge about the app, the technicalities of the business and all that. So what do you do in that situation? I think the best thing to do in that kind of situation is you can open up the content marketing team or content marketing efforts to other people in the company. For example, right? I was working with this company a few years ago, which was into workflow automation domain. And I still don't have a lot of knowledge on the workflow automation side of things, but I figured out a system. I built a system and it worked beautifully.
We were actually talking about this day before yesterday, right? When we were talking about, hey, I have mostly the clients coming up saying that, in fact, I'm telling you very genuinely, we are running an agency. We are, I mentioned, right? We are a digital transformation customer experience company, and mostly we try to focus the enterprises. So we come up with such kind of situation, right, where clients come for a B2B enterprise content marketing, and it's a very general question. They ask, okay, have you ever worked with the B2B tech companies, right? Content marketing and all, and even answers is also same. But again, convincing them is a challenge. But what you're saying is building a process, understanding a process that those who understand is the key. Right?
That's it. Like I said, the best content marketers I've seen are not subject matter experts. They are generalists. So I was giving you this example of being in a workflow automation company that created software for people to be more productive when it came to their workflow processes. And I had no idea, obviously, right? Correct. So when people hire content marketers or marketers in the team, they don't expect you to be the expert in the domain, expert in the subject matter of the industry that they are in. They want you to be a facilitator between the product and the market, right? You are the mediator, you are the catalyst for growth. So I built a system there. I was the only person working in that small company. And what I did was, because the founder didn't have time to write his own content, he was busy with so many things because the company was at the peak of growth. They were, growing month on month. So the least that the CEO of the company, the founder of the company could do was sit down with me or other people in the company and discuss ideas, right? And I am of the belief that everything that you can discuss inside the meeting rooms of your office can be turned into a marketing piece of content. You can mark my word on this. Any sales day, any talk that you have with customers, anything, the product roadmap, anything can be converted into marketing content. You will never have a dearth of idea as long as you can keep your eyes and ears open. So what I did was I built a system of sitting down with the founder of the company and a few other people from the engineering team who knew the product and the platform inside out. I sat them down and then I switched on my smartphone recorder, and I asked them a few specific pointed questions for a span of say 20 to 30 minutes. And it worked beautifully. They gave me all the ideas in a layman term, saying, hey, this is what this means. This is what we mean by rule-based engine. This is what we mean by workflow automation. This is the result that you will get by using our platform. This is how we have designed our app. And once they break it down to me in simple terms, I can, I can synthesize all that data that I've just taken. I just have to now spend next 1 to 1.5 hours transcribing the content that I just heard from them and then putting into a better marketing content, right? And that's it. So I think that's a very solid way to scale your content marketing when you don't have enough resources. I obviously had my own quota of coming up with the blog topics based on SEO, keywords, and based on other things. But apart from that, because I was the only marketer there, I built this system of gleaning on the expert knowledge of other team members from other teams who are not necessarily marketers. I'm talking about engineers, product managers, even the founders and CEOs. And you can always outsource, for the lack of better words, you can always rely on their expertise to get good content from there and make it into a marketable piece of content. And that reminds me of another thing I have always believed, and this comes from a lot of other famous people also who write books, by the way. Some people are natural at writing. Some people are natural at doing something else. It's an expression. Everything is a different expression of different form of expression. So writing is a form of expression. A lot of people are natural at speaking. The founder of a company, he might be very good at speaking. That's the reason he can pitch his company to VCs and investors and all that. But that person might not have the time or the skill to sit down and write. And that's where they hire people like you and me who are marketers, who are specialized in writing content. So if you can if you can lock yourself inside a room with these experts of the domain, all you have to do is record their let them dictate notes on you. And there are very smart apps like Otter.ai. I'm not sure if you have heard of it or not. If you don't want to record, you can also use very smart artificially intelligent tools like Otter, OTT.
Can you type in the chat so that people can,
Sure. So you can always use, speech to text apps that can help you.
Correct.
Yeah, that can help you convert these real life discussions into written content. And then from that point, it's just a matter of synthesizing those content.
Okay. Now, so one thing when you rightly said that, yes, many times the CXOs or the leaders who are actually facing the sales side, right, they don't have much time. So best thing is actually to lock them inside the room, not lock them, spend some time with them, right? So from the marketing standpoint of view, when ultimately, since you are not a subject matter expert, right, and you know that these people are, or maybe your end customer is the one who is facing the problem, so you will interview them. What is your idea? Let's say if it is a only 1 or 2% team, what is your idea, or in which direction your question should be around? Because since I am also not a subject matter expert, right? So it also becomes difficult. People can sometimes say that, hey, if you're not expert, you don't even know what kind of question to ask, right? What is your what is the thought process that should go while asking the questions?
I think it's a highly contextual question because it goes from domain to domain. You're right. Sometimes you might have zero knowledge on what direction to go with those questions, right? Because you have no idea. But I think those things will evolve if you have enough curiosity in you to understand the ecosystem in which the product operates, or understand the business technicalities. You just have to be open to ideas. Once you have a genuine heart-to-heart discussion with these people that I just mentioned, ideas will come. I think there is never a dearth of ideas for a curious person to come up with, as long as you are open enough to new ideas. You just have to sit down, have a chat, just like you have a chat with these people in break room or coffee breaks or over lunch table, right? As genuine as that. You don't have to make it a very, official, formal meeting kind of setup. You just have to sit down, have a very open talk on. Start with the question saying, hey, I don't know anything about this product. I don't know anything about the ecosystem, but I'm willing to make it successful. So give me an idea on what I should be looking for. What can you tell me? Imagine that I am a customer, and tell me all you can tell me to educate me about the benefit of the app that we are building, and how do you think can I market it? And although they might not be from marketing background, they will definitely touch upon insights that you can note down in your dictation and make it part of your marketing strategy. As simple as that.
So you were saying the most important thing is to sit with these people and your customer and listen. So once we start listening, right, the moment we get certain answers, right, we can further branch out the further level of questions more, which is more deeper.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So by listening, I mean, interact with these people as much as possible. You might not even have to sit in an office. I mean, sit in a meeting room. I think that's a great idea because you are more focused. But then the other ideas that I have seen successful in terms of 1 or 2% scaling the content marketing team is the closest person to marketers are salespeople who interact with customers on a day-to-day basis, or
Yeah.
maybe customer support too. So if you have those people already in the company that you're working with and you have to scale the content marketing, spend some time with them, interact with them as much as possible, and they're always eager to help. As much as I can tell from my experience talking to customer service people and sales people who are client facing teams, they're always willing to spend 5 or 10 minutes of their time every day to tell you what they know about the customers, what they feel their customers know about the brand, and where are the gaps in the brand to customer communication. And those are the areas that you can tap into. As long as you are willing to interact with these people in your environment on a daily basis, I think you're good to go. And that's what I mean by building a system. Just spend. This is all research, right? Talking to people, talking to customers, or talking to people who can proxy customer opinion, which is the client-facing teams I just talked to you about. They are a representative of the customer's opinion because they talk to them on a day-to-day basis. As
Correct.
long as you can do that on a regular, disciplined basis, I think we are good to go.
So this is actually mostly the creation part, which you mentioned, right? Whatever we are talking, it's basically creation part. And you have spoken mostly about written form of content, right? But since we all know that the stats which says that video content is catching up more,
Yep.
and I also get that maybe maybe majority will go into the video. And imagine, right, if everybody jumps into the video again, it is going to be very saturated, right?
Yeah.
We all know that.
Yeah.
So what do you think for a company, should they just jump in, or like if they're okay with, if they're okay with the written part of the content, it's fine, right? Or like what kind of industries do you believe that's still suitable for the written form of content, or how they should have a mix of both? if
I don't
if
think. Yeah.
Again, keep in mind that, because the team is only one guy, the guy
Yes.
is only one.
Yeah. Yeah. We have
So
to be
how to scale
respectful.
this, written part or having both?
I don't think there's a straightforward answer to that. It depends from company to company, brand to brand, industry to industry. For example, if you are in the B2B domain, I'm more inclined to believe that written form of content, thought leadership posts, and long form posts like ebooks, white papers work better
Work
than
better.
in B2C domain where videos sell better and ads do really well. So it depends from person to person, brand to brand, company to company, industry to industry. But going back to one part of the question where you said what kind of companies or how to diversify, right? I don't think any company should completely rely on written form of content. By nature or by habit, we are just biased to talk about written content when we are talking about content marketing, but that should not be the case. That's not the entire complete definition of content marketing. Marketing is definitely well beyond written content,
Yeah.
infographic, videos, podcasts. Now, podcasts are the new form of content marketing. It's
Yeah.
booming like anything because there's so much advantage to it, right? Instead of you sitting in front of your mobile or laptop, you can just listen to it on your way to office or in the gym or while you are doing laundry or while you are watering your plants. So podcast is definitely a 10 step ahead of other forms of content because it can be done in a secondary as a secondary activity, right? So as marketers, as content marketers, I think every company, every content marketer should diversify and repurpose their content as much as possible, obviously within the parameters of their bandwidth. I mean, if you are only a one person content team, you definitely are stretched to your limit. You have to be mindful about that. And that's where the initial point about being radically honest with the leadership team comes. But other than that, I think everybody should repurpose their content as much as possible. And again, there are tools that can help you be efficient in these fronts when you don't have enough resources, when you can't have other people to rely on. For example, let's say you have 4 kick-ass content blogs that you wrote over the past 2 or 3 months, right? Now, you don't want to forget about them, right? You worked hard on making them what they are, how successful they are, or getting traffic for them. Now, because you realize those contents have potential, you have to find a way to repurpose them into other forms of content that can have more or if not equal uh, impact, right? So you can use tools like Lumen 5. I'm not sure if you have heard of that tool, but I've
I have
definitely
heard of. I have heard of.
there are tools. My memory betrays me, but there is a tool by Alexa which again translates text into speech. Alexa's. I mean, Amazon has this tool, so you can use these tools, and a lot of them are free. Also, a lot of them have free trials, so you can go ahead and convert or repurpose your written content into other forms of content, so that you can cater this content to your niche market in all in the relevant platforms where your target audience hangs out. As simple as that. If your target audience likes infographic, maybe you can convert your content into visuals and post it in Pinterest, right? It has high SEO value. If your audience is known to be biased towards videos, then convert them into, convert your text blogs into videos, 2 minutes, 4 minutes video. You don't have to spend a lot of time making it into a 10-minute video because nobody will watch it. So you post it on YouTube or Vimeo or even TikTok. I don't know what's the limit, right?
Yeah.
And then if your the target audience is known to prefer other forms of content like social media and all that, then repurpose it for that platform. So I don't think there's a problem with that.
I remember, right, when the Gary Vaynerchuk says that everyone should create the 100 pieces of content in
Yep.
various formats every day, right? How, I don't know how easy it is for someone to do that. But yes, one thing, even I am convinced that, let's say, for example, there are various ways, smart ways. For example, right now we two are doing this live session, right? And we have this close to 40 minutes. We can have close to 40 or 1 hour of conversation, right? And this can go easily. So this will go in a video form, and then same thing can be converted into the podcast, right?
Yep.
And then when
Great
we
point.
feed it to another, which you mentioned, right? Even I am forgetting that tool, right? But there is a tool which converts a video to the text form, right? And that can go to blog post. And again, the same text, right, can be put into the small chunks to make it as a Twitter feed. Again, it can be used as a Instagram, which can serve for.
We can make it into a podcast. I mean, a lot of podcasts do video recording, right?
Because so 1 hour of session can go for, I think, 30 days of content.
Exactly. Yeah. Lovely point. Lovely point.
Yeah.
Yes.
So coming back to the same, another thing, right? Since we talked about the creation of content, I know that again the Vishal is asking another question, and I don't think it is about content marketing question, because he's asking how we should include, what kind of content we should include in the investor pitch deck. So Vishal, answering your question, I believe it is not about content marketing in a way, yes, but it is more about first researching your current business, what all plans that you'll make, and then putting it one kind of form. So maybe you can create a video for that, but I think you have to be first knowing about what kind of questions can be asked by your investors. So maybe you need to first check with the people, those who have gone through this investing process and all. So you have to be aware about what kind of questions your investors will look into if you are looking for a funding, right? That's the first question you need to know. And then maybe you can come back and say, right, what all things that you need to put in the pitch deck. There's no point, right, writing a good flashy content or video and then thinking that you will get an investment done, right? I think the first point is you need to be very clear about what questions you need to have to be answered, so that the moment your investor will see your deck or a video, they get to know, okay, what all the things, right? Yeah. So coming back to the main question, right, which I was about to ask. So one is now the creation of the content. So Manish, how are you convinced in terms of amplifying the content? Let's say one is the creation of content, and there couple of things I know, but I really want you to answer, because what are the various ways in which we can use the collaboration to, in fact, amplify our content marketing efforts?
Sure. I think this is the best question we've had so far, because like I said, writing or getting out the content is the easiest part. When you look at the full spectrum of marketing or content marketing, the executing part of content is actually the easiest, because like I said, everybody knows English, everybody knows how to write or create videos. I don't know what form of content are we talking about, but execution is the easiest part. The hardest part, according to me, in the creation process of content is the researching part, the structuring part, and the distribution. Without distribution, content is nothing. Without distribution, actually a brand or a product is nothing. Let me tell you that. You know, doesn't matter how good product you have, unless you have some identified proven distribution channels, your product won't get anywhere. And the same thing, same principle applies to content. Regardless of how good your content is, you have to spend a lot of your quality time making sure that it reaches the right meaningful audience or the communities where they hang out. Otherwise, the hard work that you have put into content is, it's just vanity. It doesn't go anywhere. I'm sure you have heard of this metaphor that says, if a tree falls in the jungle and there's no one to hear it, does it make sound or not? It's a very philosophical question, but I think it's like that. It's like, if you don't distribute the content that you create, it's like playing music in a closed room. And this is a metaphor that one of my co-founders that I worked with in the past used to give, and I loved it. It has always stuck with me since then. So the way I approach content is, I dedicate maybe 20% of the process towards writing it, but 60% distributing it, and the remaining 40% researching or structuring. And when it comes to amplifying part, I think you have to really identify the channels that that works for your brand. Again, it's highly contextual, because there is no set template for anyone to say, okay, these are the proven places where you can promote your content and it will become a hit. No, I think it depends from topic to topic. It's very, very granular and contextual. It depends from domain. It depends from one brand to another one. And when it comes to most of the B2B content, which is the environment that I operate in, the easiest way for you to do that is, you have to identify the communities that where your prospective market, prospective buyers hang out, and then you go there and post these comments. For example, borrowing my experience of what me and Yag have been doing for the last 1.5 years, most of the content that we create in form of podcast, in form of video conversations and blogs, we have identified 1 or 2 or 3 channels that have worked really well for us. And it's subject to fluctuation. It doesn't stay consistent all year round. So websites like growthhackers.com or Reddit, right? Reddit has a lot of subreddit or sub communities that you can go and post your content to. And there are websites like zest.is, right? These are all kick-ass places for you to go and create a noise about the kind of content that you have created. If you have a how-to content and you go and post it on just.is, as long as you have the basic foundation of good content, they will accept your content, and then you can also pay to boost your content. I think that's a great way to amplify. Or if you have a good how-to content that you can post on growthhackers.com, the community there loves every good how-to tips, regardless of which industry it belongs to. And then if you have launched a new feature, for example, you can go to marketplaces like Product Hunt, right? It's not necessarily content marketing, but I think the principle applies. Product Hunt is known to be a very lean community of people who are always on the lookout to find out new ideas, new feature launches, new product launches. So you can marry your content marketing or your marketing campaign into those platforms. You have to identify where your ideal customers socialize online, and then go after those platforms on a consistent basis. There is no shortcut to say that, hey, you go there, you post a content, it will be a hit. No, you have to develop a pattern. You have to develop a taste for doing this over and over again, and identify, really A/B test which channels work for you, which doesn't. A lot of brands, the number one mistake they do is, they create a content and then they post it on their Facebook handle, Twitter handle, Instagram handle, LinkedIn handle, and that's it. And they think the distribution is done. I think that's one way of doing it. By default, a lot of brands do it, but I think that shouldn't be the end of it. That social media is actually an engagement channel. If you step back and look at it from a bigger picture, social media is not a broadcast or distribution channel. These platforms are where you definitely you can post your content or updates or branding exercises, and then develop a following of people who can be your existing customers or prospective customers. It's a branding exercise, or it can be a customer service platform also, depending on how you use it. But these are not necessarily broadcast channel that you can rely 100% on, right? So you have to identify avenues that exist behind just these default platforms, and then go test which works out for you, what doesn't, and identify the best ones by a process of elimination, and stick to that as long as it works out. As soon as it stops working out, you have to again repeat the process in the same cycle.
So everything I think you're saying is falls back to content strategy, and I completely get that. One is finding definitely the identifying the distribution channel, right? But don't you think, right, there could be certain strategies also which can be also incorporated while even creating the content, so that using that thoughtful approach, right, while creating the content itself, right, you have in mind that it will amplify.
Sure. I think
is there any other ways, right? Because I know that, but I want you to answer, because others, and I also want to definitely know that certain new tactics that from your perspective, right? One, I definitely what I know is like using influencer marketers and all, right? But then any other thing?
I was going to touch on that. Not necessarily strictly influencer marketing in the sense of hiring an influencer and doing it.
Yeah.
But when I was in a lean team of 1 or 2 content marketers, the way I scaled my content marketing impact was I identified topics that were easy to get out. For example, if listicles was easy to get out, if everybody is in agreement of that, it's one of the easiest format of content to get out, right? If not, depending on the industry that you are in, it might not work for dry, unglamorous industries like workflow automation or Kubernetes or cryptocurrency. I don't know. I've not worked in those domains. But if you come from more or less mainstream domain like customer engagement or other forms of B2B domains, it's actually not that hard. You just have to identify what kind of content will your audience love, and then go about identifying what is the easiest way. That your job as a marketer is to think like scientist. It is to be an efficiency enabler. You have to think, what is the easiest way I can get this message out to my market? And a few ways of doing that is identify either listicles work for you, or do you want to go after curated blogs? For example, a lot of times what a lot of blog writers or content marketers do is they will come up with a topic saying 25 best books to read on customer service. I mean, that's pretty easy to get out. You don't
and they will tag those people as those who have written it.
Exactly. So that's the form of influencer marketing, right? The other thing that I've done in my personal capacity is I would create a blog saying 10 best experts to follow when it comes to sales. And then I will embed their Twitter post on the post, and then give them a mention, or after I publish the content, I will DM them the link of the blog post and say, hey, I've given you a shout out. I mean, some people appreciate it. Some people try to share it with the following that they have. Some people don't. It depends. But then that's a form of influencer marketing, right? You identify the people that that can be of value to your marketing impact. You also identify the kind of value that you are providing to your audience. You just don't go after them just because they are big names in the industry. You also have to make sure the value that you are trying to give to your audience, target audience, is also there. You have to map it really well. You have to be serious about it. You shouldn't do the job just for the sake of doing it. I think it has to be a mutual win situation. And then the other things that that can be done is infographics. Just like we touched upon the previous question, written content is just one part of this. You can always do recorded podcasts, or you can always do webinars. Webinars are kick-ass ways. What we are doing is a form of webinar. You can just invite a really well-known person to talk on a subject, and then you can record that. You can convert it into written text, or you can send them on Twitter and do things like that. A few of
I am using your audience as benefit.
Yeah, I mean that's true, right? I mean that's how marketers operate. We always are on a lookout to partner with like-minded
Yeah,
marketers so that there is a co-marketing opportunity. As
yeah,
long as your audience overlaps with mine without you hurting my business or me hurting your business, I think that's cool. And I think a lot of people do that. Guest posting is the way of doing that, right? If you have a website and I have a website and our audience overlaps to an extent, I can guest post for you or you can guest post for me, by the way, which is another way to scale your content because you don't have enough resources in your team. You can always ask people to contribute guest to your website so that they can get a link back, right? It's also a link building exercise for them. So you can always create those kind of processes. You can always launch a Write for Us program where people can come and contribute content to your website so that their name gets out and they get a shout out, they get a link back to their website. So these are pretty simple examples of how you can scale content. Going back to the other examples that we were talking about, my favorite examples is something what you mentioned earlier. I will try to reverse engineer. I will try to identify a bigger piece of content. For example, if I'm in a B2B domain of any domain, just randomly pick one domain. For example, I'm in the domain of video calling apps, right? Which is also a B2B, strictly B2B kind of thing.
so no,
So,
leave that. So many, leave this example because it's a SaaS. Try to
okay,
go a little higher, where let's say B2B enterprise, because let's
amazing.
say okay, fine, because sometimes we say okay, B2C is still a kind of a small value product. Let's
Kind of,
talk about little high value product, or maybe the B2B enterprise services, right?
I understand. Yeah,
Uh,
that's
uh,
actually even better fit for this
yeah.
example because I was going to say identify the best possible content that exists in that domain. For example, if there's a Gartner report about
Hmm,
efficiency in that industry, robotic automation or whatever. I'm just
hmm,
being very arbitrary in the examples here, but identify the best possible content that exists in your domain and apply something that Brian Dean, I think his name is, the guy who pioneered skyscraper technique.
yeah. This
So
branding,
yeah, backlinko,
yeah,
model.
backlink
So
branding.
you can go behind that kind of principle. I'm not saying apply the same kind of principle but that is a principle that is close to my heart because what I'll do a lot of times is it has so many advantages. I'll identify the best content that exists in a domain and then I'll go through it. I'll research. I'll invest my time. I'll focus a lot of my energy on understanding what exactly that content has to offer, what kind of value that has to offer, and I'll break down into smaller chunks. I'm not
Hmm,
necessarily stealing that. I'm just taking inspiration from that content to understand what has worked for the clients in that industry and then synthesize that data over a period of time to make them into smaller pieces of content that is going to be a valuable value to my prospects. And you
hmm,
always have to make sure you always add a fresh angle to that content that you have researched because nobody likes plagiarism or nobody likes plagiarism in the sense of
hmm, hmm.
lifting ideas and then just repurposing it. I think that's a lazy work. What you have to do is you have to research and then you have to add your own unique angle to it, add your own perspective to it to make sure it marries your product benefit somewhere also.
Hmm. Okay, so we have so far discussed 2 points. One is building the process and with a clear objective what we want to achieve.
Right.
Second thing is when we are having a small team, so while creating the content strategy itself, even which starts even before you start creating the content, what Manish is trying to say that we can also incorporate our strategy in which we can think of where we are going to post it, uh, or maybe bringing on or making collaborations with the other influencers, those who are already having the platform or the similar audience. So leave aside your ego. It's era of actually collaboration, so we can always collaborate, ask them to contribute to a particular kind of content, whichever form of content. One such example is the current webinar that we are doing. Similarly, I think Manish is also done. Manish and Yag has one published growth marketing book, right? Manish, you were
Right.
also one of the authors, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So it
So in that
was
there were 100, I guess, 100 marketers were there, and the
no,
final piece.
it was less than 30.
So okay, 30. 30 is also again not very lesser, right? 30 is very
Yeah,
curated
it was
set
a
of
big
people.
project. It was a big
So big,
project because it was not
and
digital.
everybody contributed, and the big piece of content came in, which actually benefited to the end user, which is the marketers, right? So it went to a lot of people. I know that this piece of book was really a highlight on the LinkedIn. A lot of people, in fact, still in the Amazon also it was selling. So he spoke about collaboration. So uh, when we go right, quickly, Vishal is asking that, uh, according to you, right, does really the length matters, or it's only about the value?
I think it does. Sadly, it does because as much as we want to believe that we are living in an era where people have an attention span less than that of a goldfish, Google doesn't agree. Google
But
still,
that is only the SEO part, Manish, right?
yeah. No, even if you look at it from intent point of view, even if you look at it from people's intent point of view, I think people love long form content. Even if you look at podcasts, right? The
Mm.
best podcast in every domain is more than 1 hour long because
Mm-hmm.
people like to deep dive. The best people that you can have as buyers, the best people you can have as followers are the people who like to deep dive on any subject instead of just having a superficial knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So I think length is of matter not only from a standpoint of SEO, but also from a point of view of how serious your prospects are. So that's the reason ebooks, white papers, and all these industry reports are still in vague, right? It's
So
still
then in that case, what's your idea that do you really think that CXOs only, let's say, for example, if I had to say account-based marketing where we target
yes,
CXOs mostly. So CXOs will not have much time, right? But if your content is focused around CFO, CEO, CMO within a particular company, right? And if you're writing a very in-depth article, right? How do you think that it's going to add value, because they don't have time to go through the entire big piece of content, right? How do you think that it is going to work out in this case?
I don't know if we have sufficient data to counter that they don't have time. Otherwise, I think these strategies would have been proven wrong already.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, on the contrary, we have data that these kind of content are not only in demand, not only in popular demand, but people are willing to uh, give their currency in exchange for it. For example, the kind of content that we are talking about, long form content that are
Mm-hmm.
behind paywalls or that are behind subscription walls, right? People are willing to exchange the email for it. So
Mm-hmm.
they are, most of the time they are used as lead magnets. So if somebody is willing to exchange data in return of downloading an industry paper or downloading a curated research paper, I think the data is substantial enough for us to understand that regardless of what kind of buyer persona are you targeting, CXO, CMO, people are willing to read that. I think it's highly it's a high assumption, it's a tall assumption for us to say that, hey, these people are busy and they don't have time to read. Because let me also tell you this from my personal experience, right? Offline, we have talked about how I have worked in a couple of cybersecurity companies,
Mm-hmm.
and the buyer persona for this industry is very dry. They
Mm-hmm.
are people from IT sector, cybersecurity background, very unglamorous domain,
Mm-hmm.
in other words, right? These people not only don't have time to read. A lot of people don't read. They are not in the habit of reading because they have very little attention span. They also hate marketing from the gut. They are not very marketing friendly people. But then if you come up with the right kind of content to serve these people, it
Mm-hmm.
need not be necessarily the typical marketing assets that we are talking about. It may not be a very well written sales enablement talk. It may not be the best blog that a person enjoys reading. It can be a blog that these people who are extremely dry in their taste will love. As long as you map that intent with the kind of value that you can provide, I think there's a match.
I think there is here. I think definitely we can we can definitely get the attention of these people if we have something in depth, right? Let's say, for example,
Yeah.
in the bigger companies, CXOs will always have their assistants and all, or some juniors, right? So let's say if we have a deep dive content, maybe these people, if it is even if the content is targeted to them, at least some research, it will get the attention, and maybe they can delegate this work of going through this particular content to their secretaries or other people. That's my viewpoint, right? I don't know.
I think we are just assuming here, but yeah, and we are open to assumptions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Dilip has a very good question here. Dilip is saying that we all know that in current marketing days, where the customers want more personalized content, right? So how easy it is for a single person team, single person marketer, to delve into the analytics also, to or in a more simpler way, that how easy it is for a single person to target a more personalized content.
I have a very good trick that I can give from my personal experience as well as from the creation point of view. I don't think I have a perfect answer for handling many things. Like, I mean, if you have so many things on your plate, from creating content to handling analytics and also doing some sort of sign up management, lead management, and all that. I'm sorry to say, but that goes beyond the scope of one man scaling. You have to have more hands on deck. You have to hire more people in the team. But from a point of view of creating content or executing, I have a very good trick, and it has worked. It works for everyone I know. The trick is, whenever you sit down to write a content, obviously I'm assuming you have to have your research in place. You have to have a structure in place that you're going behind, the content format, the content channel, and all that. Now, imagine that you're writing to one person. If I'm writing a topic of how to scale a one-man content team, for example, the topic that we are discussing today, I will imagine someone in my place who is also a marketer and who is going through a resource crunch of not having enough people in the team, right?
Maybe just 2 or 3 people, or maybe just as founder itself.
I'm just imagining one. I think that's the best way to go about it. Just imagine one person. Maybe imagine yourself in that person to have that kind of empathy, and then write to that person. Write about the kind of pain points that they might be going through. Write about the challenges. Write about the potential opportunities that they can discover. Obviously, you have to research on that, but it's also safe to assume, because you are trying to get into their minds, right? It's kind of a telepathic process. You are trying to understand things from their worldview. So as long as you can narrow down, this is the beauty of niching down. Niche marketing works really well, and even within the niche marketing, if you can just boil down the messaging to serve to just one person, it actually has a contrary effect, in the sense that if you write for one person, it's extremely highly likely that it will resonate to thousands other people who think just like that, who are in the same shoes. So from the creation point of view, it makes absolute sense to write for just one person. That's why they say, don't write in third person, write in second person, because make it sound like you are conversing with a person. Make it talk to them in the language of you. Hey, you must be going through that. You must be going through this. You must be thinking this. That works really well. Personalize as much as you can from also using personal pronouns, like first person pronoun, right? I always do that. I've stopped writing essay like third person pronoun content, because that is, I don't know, it doesn't work anymore. Nobody likes that. Whenever I have written content from my personal experiences, from being a person, I think it also delivers a human touch in your content. And although you might not hyper personalize it to the extent where this person feels like, okay, this content is specifically written to me, it does have a lot of personalized value, because when I talk about my experiences, the pain points that I have gone through, and how I can teach a lesson or two from that experience to the person who is in the same shoes, I think it will automatically be personal. Personalized doesn't mean you have to use your name. You have to use your bias name, right? That is one part of personalization in email campaigns and other forms of programmatic marketing. But when it comes to organic inbound marketing, this is the farthest you can go. You can write for one person and imagine the kind of circumstances that they are in, and try to help them out of that situation, and I think that delivers a very very creamy, perceived, personalized customer experience.
Okay. So one thing is very clear. See, we have a very shortage of the team, only 1 and 2 people team. So one thing is very clear: we can't focus on multiple buyer personas, right? We have to be very specific on one kind of client, one specific client within. So we can't be saying okay, 5, 6 clients. It cannot be. It cannot possible, right? I think somewhere Dilip's question is also about having the relevancy. Let's say, for example, if in case I am focusing on a very one specific buyer persona, okay,
Uh-huh.
uh, one specific buyer persona. Let's say I have one SaaS product, marketing automation product. So
Okay.
maybe I'll focus marketing automation product for healthcare domain. So healthcare is also again very broad category.
Yes.
I will have to maybe say that marketing automation tools for uh, mm, uh, someone who is selling therapy solutions, maybe
Uh-huh.
very specific. So that's one part. But even for that one single buyer persona, right, when I have to think from the point of view of creating a relevancy, we need to definitely have some kind of analytics in place. So how do you think that this single person should use this kind of use the analytic data to create a relevancy within their content, right? Whether it's a video or whether it's a written form of content, or is it possible for a single person?
Absolutely. I definitely
We are
think.
talking about relevancy, not talking about buyer specific
Okay.
personalization.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible because, again, see, marketing is part art and part science, right?
Hmm.
There is a creativity aspect of marketing, which is really artistic. You have to have an artistic ace to it. But on the other hand, you also have to have a scientific approach to it. And what you just brought up reminds me of how marketing needs to have a scientific approach to things. And
Hmm.
that's where I think we have to have a really well-defined process to research your domain, research your buyer persona, research your niche market, and also to understand the impact of the things that you have already created or you are
Hmm.
in the process of creating, and then take it as a feedback loop. Take it as a feedback from your customers. For example, the domain that you gave referred to, right? Marketing automation software for healthcare industry.
I just
Now,
gave an example. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So for example, if I create 5 pieces of really good content, I think it's really good,
Hmm.
and I publish it over a period of 3 months, and then if the analytics data shows that those content didn't really perform well in terms of traffic, in terms of engagement, in terms of time on page, in terms of all the important metrics that we content marketers are so inclined
Hmm.
to so crave for, right? Then it says something about the relevancy of that content, right? Um, I'm assuming the distribution was kick-ass. I'm
Hmm.
assuming the promotion was done well. If
Hmm.
that was not in place, then you have to understand that the distribution was lacking. If distribution was also given its due effort, then you have to understand that the content pieces that you created for this niche, for those topics, were not really well done. So that is a feedback, right? Not saying anything is also a feedback. Silence is also a feedback sometimes. So if
Hmm.
your customers don't say anything, if they don't, if your website, if your blog page don't have enough footfalls, right? That means that your content lacks relevancy. So
Hmm.
what you have to do is you have to go back to the first stage of content creation, which is research. Then you
Hmm.
have to go back to the niche and understand the buyer persona, understand the pain points. You have to understand what are the kind of content that are most popular among these persona, among these communities, and you have to take inspiration from those contents. Go for the best of the best. Don't
Hmm.
lowball yourself, don't undersell yourself. Go for the Seth Godin of that domain, and then see what they have done to please the customer base, and then take inspiration from them. Don't copy them ditto, and
Hmm.
then take inspiration from them and sympathize it with your own experiences, with your own knowledge and perspective, and then create a content. I think that's the very nice way, very nice process to marry relevancy into your content.
Hmm. 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 Okay. Okay. So let's say one is definitely the own media content, which we are so far talking about. How about how about the other media content which lies on other platforms? maybe in the form of guest post or PR kind of thing. So any kind of strategies that you want to mention?
Actually,
Because
those are also very good catalyst to
mhm,
amplify your content marketing, scale your content marketing efforts, right?
mhm,
So, for example, a guest post or republication on third-party sites like Hackernoon, business,
mhm,
small business tools, or customer thing. These are really good platforms where they have a proven set of customers. I'm being very specific to a few domains, but
mhm,
just examples of how you can always bank on these third-party channels
mhm.
who already have a proven set of audience. Your own media might be very new, up and coming, young,
Correct.
might not have enough domain authority or domain ranking to rank on Google. But on the other hand, if you really have good content and you want to amplify the message to your target audience, then you can always rely on the experts who have been operating in the ecosystem for the last 5 years or 10 years.
Mm.
You can always pitch them for guest posts, pitch them for republishing your content, and then that's another way of scaling the impact of your content.
So this question is very random in my mind, which has just come in because now we are talking about using the third party, uh, leveraging the others channel in the form of guest post or someone else channel, right? Uh, See, many people, yes, have these issues, right? They don't have their own content much, right? So according to you, what should be prioritized first? Do we need to first build our audience or visibility in terms of leveraging others platform? Let's say, for example, identifying a platform which is a startup. So let's say identifying a platform or media who attracts other startups, right? So should they first invest their time on building their um, attention in those platforms, or like should they first have some pieces of content on their own website and then think of what is your thinking in this?
I would definitely take the second route,
What is
the
the I
second
mean,
part.
what
Yeah,
the second part?
I'll
What you said?
I'll explain it. It's always better to be biased towards your own media than
Mm-hmm,
relying on your branding for external
mm-hmm.
media.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, Mediums and LinkedIn and all the third-party sites where you can pitch for guest post and
Mm-hmm.
republish your existing content are owned by someone else. You are at the mercy of someone else's algorithm, someone else's control, right? So I don't think that's a great strategy. Again, these are catalysts to your branding. These are catalysts to your success. They are not the legs that you can stand on forever,
But
right?
then, Manish, I don't have any audience. Let's say, for example, anyway, we are talking about small teams,
Right.
startup.
Right.
So it is very quite evident that, if somebody is having only one guy as a marketer, right, that means definitely the company has not having much traction. They have just started because no guy will do such kind of mistake of having only one marketer in a team if they are really, really going good, doing well, right?
Mhm.
So, uh, I mean, it is my viewpoint, right? Because what is wrong, right? If in case I use others channel, I know that, but at least it will give me the visibility, right? Initially, of course, I need to have both, right? I need to have my own content present on my website also, but initially nobody knows me. So if I'm posting up my content on my own website, right? Who's going to read initially, right? But if in case I'm posting the initial content just to build a little bit of awareness using others platform, what is wrong in that if in case I prioritize as a first thing initially?
Um, yeah, let me answer it in two ways. One way is let's give an analogy of setting up a store, right? For
Mm-hmm.
example, open up a shop, maybe apparel shop, right, in somewhere in Bangalore, Koramangala, or somewhere, I don't know, right? And now I have two ways of being successful in my marketing. Either I market my store by investing in a few marketing campaigns, by putting up a billboard in major locations in Bangalore where there is a lot of foot traffic,
Mm-hmm.
or I can partner with a bigger brand like Big Bazaar, or I don't know what are the other Apple superstores. I can partner with other super chains where they will have a proven set of audience who come to their store and then buy it. I think that's great for a shortcut, great for initial branding, like you said. Definitely, if that's your initial goal, if that's your higher goal, there's nothing wrong in that. But as a marketer who has seen this fail a lot of times, I think it's always better to invest in driving traffic to your small shop, and then rely on these bigger platforms to drive traffic to your own platform. For example, right, if I have a website that I've started last month, and I definitely don't have a huge base of followers, social media followers, or a website traffic, I can still write great content piece and then pitch this content piece as a republication article to these third party platforms who already have a huge following, who already have a proven set of audience, and give a link to that platform, or maybe just paste a snippet of that content like a teaser, and then tell them to read the whole content in this original site. I think it should be as simple as that. I would still say it's the latter strategy is always the better, because although it might take time, building any new thing, creating any new thing takes time. You know, it's not a matter of 1 day, 2 days. So we are talking about content marketing, which is organic marketing, and organic marketing doesn't happen overnight. So you have to be very realistic about your goals. You can definitely have shortcuts to get to results, but if you are in the long run, if you have long term plans to succeed, I think it's definitely better to lose on the initial wave of riding on some third party platforms popularity, than having your own having driving traffic to your own website basically.
So you mean to say that we can always start with some, say, 3-4 good in-depth content which can add really great value to our end customers or audience, and then maybe we can use a different version or a kind of smaller version of this content to pitch to these media houses or others blog posts, either in the form of guest posts and maybe the link back over here.
Yes.
So that if the traffic comes to my website, right, they should not be surprised that, okay, this website doesn't have anything, right?
Yes, and
Something
I've done that. I was part of this small product team called FreshChat in Freshworks, which is one of the unicorns out of India. So when I joined the team, I was only one content marketer. I was part of the product marketing team. I was not the product marketer. I was a content marketer, and they had like 5 blogs, and our challenge was really high. I mean, Freshdesk or Freshworks had really good traffic, or they had proven domain rating and all that. But FreshChat, as a the youngest product in the suite, had no branding at all, no presence in the social media, no organic marketing footprint. So the challenge that I had was to make as much noise as possible and to increase the branding to a level where people would know the brand or have a brand recall to that name, FreshChat, right? So what I did is exactly what I said. Although it was very tempting for us to go behind publications like Medium, Growth Hackers, Business to Community, Small Business Trends, we did that, but only as a secondary strategy. Our primary strategy was to build not necessarily in-depth content, but to build value-driven content, but to build really good foundational content that could give a very strong standing for the brand to stand on in the long run. And they are still performing good, by the way. And once we did that, we definitely leveraged these bigger players in the market who already have a good readership base, and then that helped us drive traffic. And now FreshChat has reached to a point where it has created a brand recall. It has a good amount of organic marketing footprint. This is a tried and tested principle, I'm telling you.
Okay. So, so according to you, then in that case, let's say a single person, or maybe the very single person, how he can be really efficient and good at tracking, according to you?
I'm sorry, come again.
What I'm saying is, according to you, right, if a single person marketer is working on content marketing, right, so how he can be more efficient, especially in tracking the efforts?
Tracking the efforts, I think analytics and my metrics are a little different than others, because I don't believe in just traffic. I believe in some unconventional kind of metrics, like and this is again goes back to my personal experience, because I always think backlink request from another company that is also in the same ecosystem is the greatest kind of compliment, or the greatest kind of success metric for your content's performance. When I wrote a content for Freshworks, for example, a few years back, I got for one blog post I got like 3 backlink requests, and I think that was pretty good indicator of what kind of quality content that I had or my team had created. So that can be one of the metrics. I always value pays on time on page more than the bounce rate or the kind of metrics. So I
So
think
time on
these
page means engagement, right? You're talking about
yeah.
more
So
engagement.
yeah, engagement metrics are more important than other metrics that we usually monitor in Google Analytics. So I think these are really good ways to track the efficiency of content. But even if you don't track it, the best indicator of success for the content that you have created or the content marketing that you're doing is the word of mouth noise that it makes. And it can come from your colleagues, it can come from the peers that you work in the same industry, it can come from a random stranger on LinkedIn. When you write a really good content and you distribute it well, most likely 1 or 2% will DM you on LinkedIn saying, hey man, I found you on this website for this content that you created, I loved it and I want to network with you. I think even if you don't track the efficiency of it, these kind of shout out, these kind of call outs from people from across the world are the best indicator of the efficiency of the content that you have created.
Okay. So from this conversation, one thing is very clear that, content marketing is definitely not a volume game. It's a very strategic game where we can rather invest more time on planning it in advance, while being more clear about who's my audience, what is going to be my target, one single business objective that I want to achieve, and how I can use one resource to better utilize and amplify it in the form of either picking up one major channel as a pillar content. It could be the video interview or the blog post, and then trying to repurpose it into multiple formats using the available tools, right? So that we can at least pull up the attention of the people, right? Right.
Yeah.
So Vishal has again another question, and again Vishal, I'm not getting your question. You are saying that using others' content may have cost impact too. How to deal with that? Vishal, can you rephrase your question? Can you rephrase your question? What do you mean by this? I'm not getting a question. What is your question? I'm just reading out. Using others' content may have cost impact too. I think Manish has not spoken about using others' content. We have spoken about leveraging others' platform. For example, finding the opportunity to guest blog on others' platform. That's what we are saying. We are not talking about paying to these media house to create a sponsored content. We are not talking about sponsored content.
Are you reading these responses on Facebook Live?
No. Group chat. This Zoom chat.
I can't see it.
I think you can also see this. Or he has sent me a private message. Okay. So anyway, we have already extended, right? But one last question I will definitely ask Manish, because everything again boils down to talent, right? Everything, whatever we have spoken, right? It boils down to talent, right? So one thing is very much clear, right? Okay, founders. Leave aside founders. Let's say there are 3 people team and 2 people are founders who are focused around building and products. But there's again he has to hire one content marketing guy. According to you, how the approach should be in hiring? What are the things that someone should look for initially to hire? I know one single person cannot have everything, but then there would be definitely a way to hire a good content marketer who can pull the trigger initially and scale the team, scale the efforts.
Yeah.
That is going to be the last question, and then we'll wind up.
Sure. So again, I'll piggyback on my personal experience of how I look at hiring. I think the number 1 or 2 or 3 things that I look for people when I'm hiring for the content marketing team that I'm building is number 1, how willing they are to invest their time on writing or creating any kind of content. If it's video marketing, then you have to have a person who likes doing video marketing day in and day out. If it's a person who likes to do meme marketing, I mean, that's cool, right? Meme is another very kick-ass form of content marketing that's being really popular nowadays. I love it. And if it's a podcast or if it's other kind of format, then it applies to those format of content. But what I'm saying principally is identify if the person is willing to spend a lot of amount of time creating that format of content. Someone who's not tired of doing it. The reason I'm bringing up this point and saying this is the number 1 point is because a lot of times what I've seen is a lot of content marketers start their career journey from being a content writer, right? There's a huge difference between a content writer
Writer and content marketing, correct?
because content writer only creates, only does what is being given to do, what he or she is being given to do. A content marketer looks at the full spectrum of the marketing process. He or she understands what is the goal, and then handles the research part, a structuring part, creation part, and then distribution part, end to end, everything, right? He knows how to, he or she knows how to collaborate across cross-functional team also. So those things are secondary. And but what I'm saying is, a lot of times when people start their career as content writers, they somehow lose patience in writing content day in day out, and sometimes they think of pivoting to other forms of marketing. Maybe they'll go into sales team, or most of the times what I've seen is content writers, after a point of time, they take some kind of shame, for the lack of a better word. They're ashamed to call themselves content writer, and they'll start calling them product marketers, although they have no idea on product marketing. I've seen it a lot of times. So, and these people will try to.
I've never come across, content writer calling themselves a product marketer, because that's a totally different thing.
Let me tell you, it's rabid right now. Everybody calls themselves product marketer, despite not having any knowledge about what exactly product marketing means.
Correct.
I think product marketing is great, but maybe, product marketers can be great copywriters, content writers, content marketers, and content marketers can be good product marketing people. There is an overlap, but I don't think it's a cutout. I don't think that's a very fluid thing to do. You have to have a learning curve on shifting from one domain to another. But coming back to the point of what I was saying is, a lot of people who start their career as content writers later in the days, they pivot to calling themselves product marketer, because they want to distance themselves from the process of creating, from the process of marketing the content, which is, I think, is a letdown, because they were hired for content writing. And as long as there's a match, as long as they genuinely want to follow other passions in life, like product marketing, that's great. But what I'm saying is, if they lack the drive to create content on a day-to-day basis, that's a red flag that you should be aware of. So hire a person who lives and breathes content, the form of content that you're hiring for. And that's number one. Number two, curiosity. Always find a person who is a generalist, who takes pride in not being a specialist, and who is open to new ideas, who's open to, taking up any challenge that is thrown at him or her. I think curiosity goes a long way, not just in marketing domain, not just in content, in every domain, in every walk of life, but especially because content is such an amalgamation of a person being a researcher, a person being a data scientist, or data entry person, a lot of times a person being a creator, and a person being a salesman. Distributing your content is nothing but another form of selling your product, right? So this is a amalgamation of a lot of things. So curiosity is the lever that drives all of these skills. So have, number one, a person who is not tired of creating content on a long-term basis, play a long-term game with that people. And then second thing is, look for curiosity in that person to go to the depth of the domain to get to the results that you want them to go to. So number two things, those are the two things. I can go on and on, but I believe we don't have enough time to spare.
Yeah, correct. So just trying to add here, because how do you think that, since you already said, right, the content writers and content marketers are two different things, right? And one person who is coming as a content marketer in a company, right? How do you think that they should be tested in terms of their strategic approach for getting into a particular company? What I'm trying to say, that don't you think, right, if a person is coming in the interview, right, we can check that by giving an assignment saying that how you're going to plan this content, how you will what kind of questions that you will ask, and then giving checking that how good he is in planning the content. Because it's, when we have already discussed about focusing on more strategy side rather just thinking of creating the content, because it's more about planning and checking and researching rather just creating.
Right. Yeah, I think the simple answer to that is, maybe we can have the topic of our discussion today as the question to test their potential. For example, if a content marketer has come to my company and I have a 2-member marketing team or no one, he or she is the first hire, I'll ask them, you are going to be the only person handling content marketing for the next 6 months because we don't have bandwidth to hire another person. How will you scale it? How will you run it? Give me a day-to-day picture of how will you run this team. I think that's the best assessment. And I will test him on the grounds of not creating the content, researching the content. I think those are essentially very important skills. But I would like to get a bigger picture of what this person is capable of doing. So I would test him or her on the basis of what kind of B2B marketer it is, he or she is. Because, content marketing is only one area of specialization. If you take away the extra attractants of the word content marketing, it's nothing but B2B marketing. Content marketing is nothing but another way of saying marketing, B2B marketing, right? So I would like to test that person on the grounds of how well this person will take a campaign. It can be an inbound marketing campaign. It can be a paid campaign. It can be an engagement campaign. I will try to ask him and let him explain it to me. How will he run a campaign from start to finish? I think if that person can explain that process to me in a simple, no nonsense language, that is assessment number 1. I can give him a pass and then go on to testing him on other grounds like writing skills, grammar skills, research skills, and analytics skill. All that is secondary, I think.
So definitely, the other 2 points, which the main points you mentioned, right? Definitely not testing on the current behavior, like, okay, what is your current grammar skills, rather the attitude, which you mentioned, right? How you are very much comfortable working on the new assignments, or are you ready to put in the effort in doing something which is actually required for achieving a particular targets?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Basically ownership. I think what we're looking with these kind of questions is, how willing are you to take one-man ownership of this entire process, and how will you execute on it? Is this person intimidated or not if I give him this huge ownership of handling content marketing for the foreseeable future of 4 months or 6 months? I think basically that's the question.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Manish. It was really wonderful session because we learned a lot of things, right? Starting from.
I hope so.
No, definitely, because yes, for the many companies, right? Especially even I have seen, and for the startups, right? Those are doing it. We focus so much into the product, right? These many startups, they focus so much into the product, right? They forget the end picture, that it takes time, and many times, right, the shortcut doesn't work, right? And it takes little time. So sometimes it's investing more time on doing the strategic approach, at least investing some of their time in the marketing side, and then planning in a longer term, right, will create wonders. So if they have to focus on marketing, especially the content marketing, what you mentioned, right, it's not a volume game, it's actually strategy and research. So yes, so it's an impact game. So this is actually the major key for this conversation, right? And then of course we covered, right, choosing one kind of channel, and then thinking about strategies to how we can down the line going to distribute it, right? So this could be either in the form of strategically thinking even while creating the content, okay, and then also in advance knowing that what all channels we are going to use to actually promote this content or distribute the content, right? And the last part, definitely we have spoken about guest blogging opportunities or using others' platform. And the very important thing which we concluded with the one topic where even I have learned, right, where we had a debate that should we use our platform first in terms of creating a content, or like should we leverage others' platform to create a content, right? I was from some kind of mixed view of that. Okay, no, it's always better to create someone else's content, right? Platform someone else's content, so that at least I can have the attention over by. But then again, you were right somewhere that until unless we don't have our content on our own website, right? Maybe the people who are coming to my website, right, they will just go away because they will not find anything, right? So it's always good to have something, right? And then with the concluding remark on how we should have, what kind of mindset we should look for while hiring that single guy, who is going to take the ownership for the content marketing. So thank you so much, Manish, and especially thanks so much for others also, those who have joined us for the session. I'm definitely looking forward for your feedback. And since I am doing this Elevate talks every day at 7 p.m. Definitely, I'm looking for more questions, even the topic ideas. Remember that Elevate talks is all about digital transformation, customer experience, and marketing. And so I am focusing more towards the customer experience, because I believe that every company should now focus on the customer experience, because they are the only ones who can tell us what exactly we should serve them. So it should come from outside in, not inside out, right?
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. Thank you again, Manish.
Thank
Again,
you.
reach out to me or LinkedIn, reach out to Manish, reach out to me if you have any other customized questions you have, and
Yep.
we'll be trying to help you out with any kind of help that we can give it to you.
I would love to, have this conversation going forward in offline in other platforms, as long as there's meaningful interaction that we can have.
Yeah, correct.
It's good to connect. So
Thank you so much.
everyone.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank you
Samir.
so much, and
Pleasure.
stay safe. Good evening.